What's up, guys? This is Ryan from Bible Dingers, and I am here to bring you the final installment of our Prolegomena series, and in this one we're going over apologetics.
Prolegomena, it's a word you probably never heard until just now.
So, what is apologetics? Apologetics is providing a defense of the truthfulness of Christianity. Now, there's several different types of apologetics out there, and I'm just going to give you a handful of some of the more popular ones. So the first one is biblical apologetics, and this is a defense of the books of the Bible, the authorship, the dates, things like that. We focus a lot on our podcast on things like biblical apologetics, where we talk about who wrote it and when, and why we know these people wrote it. Next is experiential apologetics, which is not necessarily as powerful of an argument as some of the other ones, but essentially it's an appeal to personal experience as evidence that Christianity is real. Next is historical evidentialism. So this is classically a defense of the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus. Next is presuppositional apologetics. So basically this presupposes the Bible as divine revelation and says that Christianity is the only basis of rational thought, and that essentially a Christian cannot truly reason with a non-Christian. Next, let's get into philosophy. What is philosophy? So basically, it is the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence in general. Epistemology is the study of belief, truth, knowledge, and rationality. Ethics, the study of good and evil, right and wrong. Metaphysics is the study of being, or what really truly exists. It's transcendence in a way. Causality. This is the process of one thing causing another thing. So deductive reasoning is a logical inference in which if you assume that a premise is correct, you must assume that the conclusion is correct. You must assume being a key word. And then that sort of contrasts with inductive reasoning, and this is a logical inference in which you assume that a premise is correct, and so you assume that the conclusion is probably correct. Deductive must be, inductive probably. Next, we're going to talk about fallacies. In apologetics and philosophy, you'll hear a lot about logical fallacies. A fallacy is an argument that seems to make sense on the surface, but it is not actually based on logic. We're going to go through a few of the most popular ones. You've probably heard these thrown around a little bit. The first one is appeal to authority. This is making a case for something because somebody with some type of authority endorses that position. Next is the straw man fallacy. Now, the straw man fallacy is essentially when somebody creates a new argument that was not originally intended or supported by their opponent, and then takes down that straw man that they created. The last fallacy I'm going to give you is the no true Scotsman fallacy. And this is sort of a shifting of the goalposts in order to exclude a counter example. So the best way to define this, I think, is to give you an example. And this is sort of the classic example. Person A says, "No Scotsman puts sugar on his porridge." Then person B says, "But my Uncle Angus is a Scotsman, and he puts sugar on his porridge." Then person A says, "But no true Scotsman puts sugar on his porridge." And that is the no true Scotsman fallacy. Lastly, I'm going to give you some of the major arguments that you will find in apologetics. The first one is the Cosmological Argument. So this says that the existence of the universe proves that God exists due to the nature of the universe and causality. This has sort of been finely tuned by William Lane Craig into the Kalam Cosmological Argument. Took me a second there to think of my last word. Next is the Teleological Argument, and this is the argument that there is a clear and purposeful design in the universe. This is also known as the fine-tuning argument. Next is the Ontological Argument. So this argument says that the very concept of God demands that God exists. It would take me much more time to actually explain this in depth, so I'm just going to leave you at that. There's plenty of resources out there for people who are interested in Christian apologetics. Off the top of my head, we're friends with Adherent Apologetics, Capturing Christianity, lots of resources here on YouTube. Next is the moral argument. This is a very strong argument for Christianity in my own personal opinion. And this basically states that God exists because objective moral value exists. Since morals aren't subjective, there has to be an objective basis for our morals, and that objective basis is God. Next is Reformed epistemology. This was popularized by Alvin Plantinga, a very Gandalf-looking fellow, and this is basically the argument that belief in God is properly basic. Lastly, I'm going to leave you with Pascal's wager. So Pascal's wager is essentially that people are wagering their lives on whether God exists or not. This says that a rational person would opt to live as if God exists.